So I'm the owner and founder of Full Cup Creative, and today we're going to talk about data and creative solutions for CRO. I've been doing this a long time, a lot of times for enterprise level companies just to help them get started. And we use the cup begin. And in general, I think that is because I'm a Southern girl, we like the table. We want everybody to have a seat at the table. We want you to get started. So hopefully I'm bringing some real practical solutions to you guys today. So again, we're a digital and creative optimization company, and we really play off this idea of mixing up the freshest ingredients, and that idea is just data, creative, and innovation. There's so many exciting technologies going on in the world right now. I've personally been in optimization for 10 years, and what I've seen come to light is just amazing. So we have more and more tools now to do what we want to do. Just a little bit about me. I did found Full Cup Creative in 2006, so we've been around quite a while now. I've been focusing on optimization solely for the past 10 years. I'm an optimizer, and you find when you become an optimizer, you want to optimize everything. Everything that's in front of you, you're like, how can we do that better? I do write. Actually, I'm a songwriter, and the hardest job I have is a mom of 2 kids, so hopefully they'll be proud of this talk from mom. We're going to go over data-driven hypothesis. How many of you guys that actually are in charge of optimization start with data to come up with a hypothesis? I love it. Anybody else? Okay, great. We're going to dive into that. And using creative and content to problem solve. How many of you are designers in the room? So we're problem solvers, right? So we want to mix the data into problem solving. And the next is optimize with purpose. You know, we are about designers, optimizers, marketers. We really should be after how can we make the user's job easier for them to get information. We are all users, right? We are all on the web. How many people have had a frustrating experience online in the last 48 hours? Yeah? Anybody? Get them up there. Because we all are dealing with it. So not only are we solving problems for our user, we're solving problems for ourselves. So let's dive in. The user has more and more options than they've ever had. And if we're not clear with what we want them to do, they're not going to just innately know what we want them to do. We have to point the directions for them, give them signposts to hit. So really our job is being an advocate for the user. So how many people, again, feel like they understand their audience? Especially if you work for an agency, you've got a lot of different audiences. So let's just raise that hand. How many people are here for a brand? One single brand? And how many are here for an agency that represents several different brands? So it even gets harder on our agency side to understand and really get relevant about each audience type. We do that by starting to ask why. This is just a heat map. A lot of people are using behavioral analytics in the room. So we look at behavioral, which we'll go through several options for that. And also just your data sources, tying into GA, if you use a data visualization tool like a Tableau or a Domo, really diving into those first before we ever come up with a hypothesis. So right now I'm just going to dive into some types of different behavioral analytics that we use. This is just a heat map. Everybody, how many people do use heat maps every time a test is discussed? What do y'all use? Somebody throw out what you're using for heat maps. I heard somebody say Hotjar, ClickTel. Anything else that I haven't? Heap. So these are really helpful to help us learn on-page metrics, even if they didn't click a hover. So we have those data points that come out of GA and all of your native platform data, but you also have this intangible too. In this case, we asked why. Why is there not more interaction on this tap to call button? So I want you to start using data to make your hypothesis. If we increase the visibility of this phone number, we will increase conversions. So every test that we've done in here, I have given you a metric of what the lift was. We'll go over a dozen tests with lift. It doesn't mean we don't fail. We do, as any good optimization program will. You learn from those as well. But this, just simply by updating that, we got a 5% lift. This actually video is not going to work for us, but we can still get an idea. So anybody use scroll depth? Scroll depth is important if you have a long page. So many pages now are long format. Are they really consuming that much information? So the scroll depth, you can see here, And when the slides go out, we'll make sure you have this video, but this page is enormously long. They're only consuming 1/3 of it. Why is the page so long if they're not even getting down to the information? Just by simply asking the questions, why is it so long? Practical solutions. What if we prioritize it? What if we shorten it? Will they get it? Do we know what information they really need? Does it need to change by audience type? Just by shortening the page, prioritizing content, putting it on the top, 11% lift. All these tests did reach statistical significance of 95%. And we deal with a large volume of users, so we can typically get tests in and out in an A/B setting in about 2 weeks to confidence. So 11% lift just on asking a quick question in 2 weeks. We'll take it all day. Another is event tracking. And this could be an on-page metric, or this could be through your Google Analytics. This is actually through tagging on a page. We started to notice, why in the world are we not getting more people through the first step, right? We're converting more on the second step, but we have so many less entering. This is a quiz. Anybody using conversion paths or quizzes on their pages? Has that been successful? Anybody? Oftentimes we see if we can get a user inside a conversion path, they will often convert. It needs to be relevant every step along the way. But this, we wanted to increase that. So if we increase the user opportunities for user engagement, give them more options, then we can increase step 1. 20% increase in step 1 just by giving more options on the page to dive in. So those are just a few data-driven ways, and there are many, many more. These are just some on page and in GA. I would just say, if you are an agency or even a brand and you're not tying in to that central source of data with your client, it's so important to do so. We'll talk about that in a minute, but GA is, the holy grail for a lot of our clients. We can have on-page metrics, but if we're tagging in on the page and we need to go look at that in GA, those need to tie together. So just a note there that we not only are making data-driven decisions, but we're making data-driven decisions that are in line with the client's data. So we're trying to keep users happy and productive. So I saw that some of you guys are designers. Content and creative, it's about solving problems for the user, not because we like green, not because we like blue. I love that. I've been a designer for a long time, and when we started quantifying, that really got me excited because we know that the C-suite's decision about putting, the picture of the puppy on the page, although that does work, don't be afraid of animal videos, we need to prove that. So I really love the idea of problem solving to make the user's life easier. So let's talk about user expectations. Has anybody played with this testing so far about just simply telling the user what's next and why? User expectations, we did a recent test and we just named it What to Expect. This is a lead generation campaign on the landing page. A simple what to expect. It was a content section and it just was a drop down, simply the words what to expect. 15% lift in 2 weeks. Some other ideas for that are FAQs, process, timelines, season. Can you get relevant when we get to match and give them something seasonally appropriate about what to expect? Does it change with the time of year? 15% lift in 2 weeks just by telling them more. Users are intelligent, right? We're all users. We need to meet them at their level of expectation and intelligence. Don't be a roadblock. Get them exactly what they need to take the next step. Let's nurture the visit. Self-segmentation is another great way, and one I really like, because if you don't know your audience, right? We had that question earlier about who knows their audience really well. Sometimes you can't know your audience very well, right? We can make assumptions that a non-branded user coming in on a general term knows less about your company than coming in on a branded term, right? But even on a branded term, they may know the brand, but they may not know the service. So self-segmentation is something that we've used a lot over the last 2 years, even more so. But it could be as simple as check the box. Are you here to learn more about the company? Or are you here to let's get this done? Let's take the next step. By simply bucketing users in the right bucket, general buckets that you can then break off, you are going to get so much closer to a relevant content to meet their needs. In this case, we did a recent test where we populated the first step of a quiz to the second step. Are you here because you need to start a service today, or are you just wanting us to email you back? Even we have done that about a callback, allowing them to be in control. Again, it's all about what we can do for them, not about what we get. And it's so easy to get myopic as a marketer and optimizer on we've got to get this. It's how can we support them? If we give them what they need, they will give us what we need in return. So right here, 5% lift. And we have actually seen more dramatic results, but this is just on a step 1 to step 2. Quizzes are a great way. Buttons, content sections, locations. All of these are places that we can start to segment our audience more and provide a more relevant message to them. Match. We've been talking about match today. We've had a lot of good sessions. Again, it's about meeting the users where they are. Nobody wants to start over. And those 48-hour sessions that you were talking about with so much frustration, how much did you have to start over, right? How did you get in a forum and it shut down? Did you type in a query and you got to the page and they're like, what are you here for? You know, we've got to start meeting them where they are and taking that next step forward. This is a handhold to come with us, not to the roadblock to stop us. In the past test, the user search query was populated on the headline. Now, you do have to take some modifications. So this might take a more technical idea of a lookup table. If you know, here's another question: who works for their PPC team closely? If you're an agency, is PPC in-house, search in-house, display? Great. Anybody in a situation where your search company is separate from creative and pages? It's so important for those two to have the most optimum relationship, whether it's for display, for search, SEO. The expectation has to be set. In this case, it was just taking a query from a search and populating in a headline. It did take modification because we had to take that search query and come up with, say, the top 5 campaigns and make sure that works, right? Because it can't be a mismatch. We heard that earlier. By doing this, we saw a 30% lift across 5 product types. Not 1, 5. Again, if the user knows what they're searching for in its specific term, why are we giving them general information? Stay with them. Stay with the specifics. We were talking about sentiment. I think we brought that up earlier. We were doing a campaign on threat versus protect. Is going to get you now, or can we help you avoid it? Type of idea. We saw this time and time again. There's a lot of threat going on in the world. Turn on the news, right? So what we saw over and over is that if we put protect messaging, met their sentiment about their need, not giving them more problems, giving them solutions, that we saw a 34% increase in this particular instance. Threat versus protect. So I would encourage you to really get into the emotion of your user in messaging. Slow down for them. What are they there for? What are we trying to solve for them? Again, we're user advocates. Let's go back to how we can solve the problem for them. Content stack. Anybody played with this type of testing? Maybe it's about audience, type. Again, going back to the branded and non-branded user example, we believe that the branded user has a different need of information in the hierarchy of that information versus a non-branded user. In this case, we played, and actually this test we did in AI, and I'll get to that in a bit, but we had 6,000 options. And we saw time and again that not only does the content stack matter, and a lot of times we divide our creative into containers so we can label them. Social proof, brand validators, hero, offers. So then we can get to a bigger plan about how those need to sit within each other. This can yield some big results if it's thoughtful. This is 17% lift, just in the same information being stacked differently. Social proof. I know we're talking a lot about that, a lot about social in general. I think it's just good common sense without testing that validators help with persuasion. But what I have been continually impressed by is sometimes it takes more than one. In a recent test that we ran, 4 out of 5, and we'll get to this on the next slide, had social proof, not in one area of the site, but 2 areas of the site. 4 out of 5 top performers. Social proof, and that doesn't mean it's just testimonials. It could be, I would even encourage you to get local. Go regional with your testimonials. Also, product and service reviews, social feeds, contests. If you have brand validators, if your company's out there doing good in the world, and you can show that on the page, that's important too. In getting to that result I just mentioned, in a recent test of 4 out of 5 top performing creative variations, all included social proof sections. The average was 18% and the highest left 20%, just by putting more than one social proof on the page. Does anybody know Tom Fishburne? I really like this idea. And the next we're going to talk about programs. How do we get there, right? How many of you has ever felt like this at the office when you're trying to come up with the next thing to test? Before we dive in, how many of you guys are using calendars for your optimization? How far in advance do you plan? Anybody? Big communications, how often? Yeah. Do you always hit everything on that calendar? Right. Anybody else planning out far in advance, but maybe only hitting a fraction of it? We really want to optimize with purpose. Again, I think this goes back to, listen, there are all types of tactics in the world. I really want to humanize what we're doing, right? Have a seat at the table. Make it more warm and friendly. We're all users. How can we use our data to come up with a hypothesis to make it better? How can we use design and content to really push that idea and hit them where they are? And then what is this idea of optimizing with purpose? We really need a roadmap. It is not just whack an idea and throw it at the wall. And a lot of times that happens. If you're getting pressure from C-suite to put a badge on the page, it really becomes important to have a roadmap so you don't get lost in all that. Typically it takes, depending on your traffic, 2 weeks to a month to get to significance. So now we're talking about 12 tests a year, maybe 24 on a particular channel. We can make that grow by spreading it out and doing cross-channel optimization. These ideas are important. It is not just testing to test. We need to optimize with a purpose that gets us to our end goal. Now, I think that happens through a roadmap. We'll get into more buy-in, but just simply having your test, location, status, theme, hypothesis, KPIs. If you use a model or framework like Pi or PXL to come up with your priority, I think your method's important. For us, method is either A, B, or AI, because we optimize with both. Obviously, when we say location, what channel we're going to do this in. Can we repeat it? If we get bang-up job here, can we take it over to social and give it a try? It's important to come up with tests that we feel like that we can repeat. And then spread those out. Dates, notes, and results, obviously. But having something like a roadmap to obviously come back to and check in and gut check when you get that pressure to put the badge on the page is so important. So again, we're going to talk about A/B versus AI. How many are actually testing on page with AI? No one? Traditional A/B? Raise your hand if you're optimizing with A/B. So we've had a real exciting opportunity to partner with an AI company, and we have been doing this for the last year. I am personally super psyched about AI, but I can tell you right now in my climate with my clients, it doesn't always fit. So I think that's a real practical application to what we need to talk about today. AI is awesome for big redesigns. How many people have designed a page, redesigned a page, and had it fail? No one? I was going to say, please, somebody, tell me if that happens to you. Because oftentimes, especially when designers, and I am one, so I can say this, get in the room, we get really excited about change. And it's real hard to put the brakes on to only change one thing on the page. But look at this shiny object. And to get buy-in, it's hard. So redesigns are awesome for AI because we can vet out thousands. Again, a test I recently ran in the last month had 6,000 combinations. Right, so I can really get clear about what I'm doing. Let's change the whole page. It needs to be with purpose. Going back, it needs to hit all of those things, but it allows us to get through bigger, riskier changes without harming the URL health or the property health and it dipping below that control. Also exploiting learnings. This is awesome too. Like I said, social proof. You can bet I will be exploiting social proof through AI. Because if it only takes 2, great. Where are they? What are they? Where do they need to be? Is it better for one audience than the other? This is where AI can really, really make a game changer. Where I feel like A/B really has a place right now. Now, I do see the future in mostly AI. But in my shop, we use both. And we have to figure out which lever to pull at which time and when it makes sense. A lot of times these AI tools right now are about traffic. So you need the volume. And I think that's what a lot of optimizers are going to run into is actually the amount of volume you need to get through an AI test within even 30 days. You're giving up your traffic optimization for 30 days. So it needs to be thoughtful. I think UX decisions are important. For example, I think this is in here, but we'll go through. Are you changing your form? Are you changing how the user interacts? I think those decisions right now in my shop are best left to A/B. It either works or it doesn't work. If I see, some inconclusive results, I might try to exploit that more. But if it's how the user is going to interact on the page, and if it is black and white, I think that's best for A/B. Local markets are also helpful. For example, does local content work or not, right? And then using AI to exploit that. Where, why, what, in exploitation. Validate AI. Can you tell I'm still slightly skeptical? But that's okay, because I have to prove it, right? So right now, I take it out of an AI test and I put it into an A/B, because I want to be clear about those results. And technical changes too. I think anything left like that with the volume AI can produce can be risky. Right now, we stick with A/B. This is a recent redesign tested at each section of the content and type. So this is a content type and location. 92 design variations, 30 days produce a 17.4% lift. You can still get as good of results out of A/B. Form usability tests challenge traditional lead form to a conversational Mad Lib form. Have you seen these? I'm here too. Fill in the blank. Remember Mad Lib when you were kids? Really seeing success with that. One design variation, 14 days, 22% lift. Full funnel. I can't say enough about this. My company sits in a seat of cross-section. I work with, I heard somebody say Publicis earlier, we sit with them, we sit with IT, we sit with marketing, we sit with all of these different interest groups. And I think full funnel is so important. You've got to jump properties. If you're in a landing environment, cross that property, find a tool that will go cross-domain with you and follow that funnel all the way down. Anybody using Pi framework? This is about potential importance and ease. This is a framework to prioritize your roadmap. This is just a quick example I wanted to give, but this goes back to your roadmap. This one, they wanted to autofill an address. We were getting pressure from the client to do this, but we had to put it through this to see if it was going to work with their calendar. Could it increase? We found that it could actually be a big game changer for us, and the effort was medium. It's just back-end integration. So we went for it. 10% left. And I think there's, obviously I like food. I am a Southern girl. It's about making things match. It's about finishing the sentence for them. So again, our takeaways are data-driven hypotheses. Go for the data first. Look for the leak. Look for the hole. Look for the stumble. Use creative and content to solve your problems on page for the user. And then finally, optimize with purpose. We are not out there just to throw ideas against the wall. We want to take those first two and come up with a plan and a roadmap that actually increases usability, brand trust, all of those things that are going to get the user to the next step and increase the bottom line. So thank you so much. If anybody has any questions, I don't know where we are in time, but I really appreciate y'all are an awesome audience, and we made it. Thank you so much. Celebration. Any questions? Nobody, nothing? Thank you for, yes?
Testing, A/B testing with creative and messaging. How many different tests do you run a month or per campaign?
For social?
Yes.
I'll have to say social, probably one a month. We tend to go where volume is, and then we'll take those learnings and roll it out, prove it back in another channel like social. Because social can tend and display not to convert as high, we tend to vet out higher priority ideas in a bigger market like search, and then we'll take them to social and revalidate or test in a way that matches better with the social audience. But I would say a typical one a month. We'd like to see more than that. Search the volume's higher. I'd like to see my team produce 2 to 3 tests a month on high traffic properties. Yes? That's a long toss.
I don't do sports, but we're trying. Okay. All right.
Great
thank
catch.
You. Thank you. So a question I have as far as like the testing goes is, I guess 2 different things. Like a lot of the business stuff that we do, like we have an e-commerce site that sells, fabrication products and things like that. But we deal with 2 things. That one is, I guess, the seasonality. Not really like in the where it's like a fall and a summer, but just some months are better than other months for a variety of reasons. And then we also deal with just kind of like industry, I guess, trends. Like for example, when the oil crisis hit, right, then sales dropped, and then as it's coming back, sales are going back up. How do you run a test and then take those 2 factors into consideration? Because like I could compare this month to last month, and then or this month to last year's, this month, and then there may be those other factors that we're not really considering.
I think that's a great, very practical question. I want everybody to always be open to revalidate your test. It's not a one and done. It may be a different season. I would test in season, off season, depending. So I would actually retest that. And if you know it's a seasonality you can speak to, you might could just speak to the user directly on the page of, we know this is going on in your area. I think relevancy makes a big difference. But I would say retest to revalidate your results. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay.